Great to see you all here, interested in security. As said, my name is Kristian, and security is not important to me only. It should be important to all of you as well. To some extent, in some form or fashion, it affects all of us without even knowing. Whether you are a consumer of a service or maybe a developer or a product manager delivering that service. So today, really quickly, I would like to say a few words about myself. I say that actions speak louder than just talk, so I'll go through this quickly. But I've been in the cybersecurity field now for over 10 years. I stumbled upon it accidentally during my internship in IT college. I am technical by nature, and I'm most comfortable behind the terminal. But I can do this as well to some extent. Why I'm here and why I'm also teaching at Teltech is the fact that I love to share my knowledge and experience. You shouldn't take my words to be the only truth. They are not. Most of it, a lot of it, is my opinion. But the important thing is we spark discussion in the community. Because if we don't share and discuss, we won't stay ahead of those that we are against. So hopefully, by the end of this conversation here, you'll be able to answer some of these questions. Before kind of looking more closer how to bring security into development lifecycle and bring it more closer to developers, I would like to say, why is it even needed? Why am I here? What are some of the threats that are out there? And then how and what is my experience in putting those controls in place to bridge the gap between the two worlds? So, I have made mistakes. Mistakes are important. You learn the most from them. And I will share a couple of them here today as well. So, numbers, in my opinion, are a great way to tell a story. And this is the story of why should we care. Data breach is an event where your data is exfiltrated or stolen from you without you knowing. The average cost, as you can see, is quite big. This has a chance to end businesses. If you suffer a data breach, you will suffer reputation loss, client loss, which is why we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. Now, if we look at the number of days, which is almost a year, how long somebody can be in your environment without you knowing, it's quite shocking, which is why we need proactive measures to prevent people getting in. Couple that with the fact that the landscape changes daily and how many programs are introduced is quite big. And I want to speak about ransomware, and I want to speak about an example that happened last week. Ransomware, if you don't know, is a malware, a piece of malicious software that is designed to lock your data, so you won't have access to it. The only way to gain access back is to pay the money to the criminals, usually in cryptocurrency. Then they will send you the decryption key and you will open it up. So, I think it was last week, and some of these facts are unconfirmed. They are from the internet. You have to take that with a grain of salt. But MGM Casino in Las Vegas was targeted by a ransomware group. How did they get in? They used mobile phishing. They targeted a person known to be working at MGM. They impersonated that person and got past the MFA via help desk. They tricked the help desk to give them the reset credentials. What ended happening? Approximately 5,000 servers got encrypted. And this is a number that was found on the internet. How true it is, I don't know. But what I want to tell you is the cost is estimated to be anywhere from $4 million to $8 million a day for that company. So we should care. And if we look at US companies in general, 74% of them have said they have suffered a successful phishing attack. So it's not a question if I get breached, it's a question when and how ready I am for it. If I tackle it within 5 days or in 287 days. And really quickly, some of the attack trends, it's no wonder that ransomware is on the top, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and is estimated to grow into a trillion-dollar business by 2025. So If you would ask me, if I pay the cryptocurrency to the hackers, will they give me the key? There's always a risk, but consider that they are running a business. And if they don't send you the key, you tell someone else, they won't make money. They are in the business to make money, and that's it. Supply chain breach. In today's world, where borders are undefined, we are connected with so many different things. Whether it's when we're developing our software and using third-party dependencies, whether it's using an outsourced IT management system, these sources are a way into your business as well. So, which is why we need to make sure that we have a third-party risk management program and we detect problems in the dependency chain. Misconfiguration may seem boring and mundane, but can easily be the easiest way in and damages you the most. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. We need to learn from it. That's the key. And human element. I always say, what is the stupidest thing between a computer and a chair? Me. Whether on purpose, with a mistake, I was tricked to it, I can cause the most havoc to systems. If we remove the human element, we are much more secure. So let's talk about a concrete example. This slide is a good example how I made a mistake. It's not 2 million downloads per week, it's a couple thousand downloads per week. Everybody makes mistakes. I read through the slides, honestly, but still. So why am I bringing this example out there? NPM open source packages. A lot of software developers use it when they're writing JavaScript. Why? Well, why should you write something from beginning if you can use something that's already been done for you, right? Makes sense. Event stream example, this happened in 2018. There was a very popular library in JavaScript, which was called event stream, and the owner was not actively maintaining it anymore. However, there were a couple of other developers that were part and had published some changes there. And one of them decided, I want to do something clever. He decided to be the malicious actor. What he did, he wrote to the owner asking if he could give the ownership over. And that happened. They then introduced a new dependency into the chain called flatmap stream. And that actually contained a malicious code. Now, if you would install that dependency and you would run a cryptocurrency business where you would offer crypto wallet to your customers, this library would steal automatically the wallets in your system. So this was a wake-up call for a lot of developers, organizations, that this is something that we have to focus on, we have to look out for. It's not easy. If you think about this dependency, the world is huge, and you cannot take that away from people as well. So you have to detect things before they get to be a problem. So, but I want to reach the security by design element of our speech. This is just an intro. So let's sum up a bit. I'm not a pessimistic person, but the fact of the matter is we introduce new data into our hands, into the digital world so much. We increase our attack surface every day with that. This means if we don't take care of things, things will get worse. Hackers are finding new ways in. They are finding new ways to be clever. And AI is not a silver bullet. I'm not saying AI is useless, but we shouldn't consider new technologies as something that will solve all of our problems. Why? AI can help me, but AI also helps the other side. They also help write exploits for the criminals. The fact of the matter is, in the cybersecurity realm, there is not enough people, and all of us should be caring about cybersecurity. Maybe that's the point where AI can help us a bit. It's not to replace me or my team, it's but to make us efficient. Maybe instead of 10 people, maybe I would need 9 people because all the mundane work would be eliminated. This is where AI could be helpful for us. So it would be stupid not to consider that as a fact. But AI will not replace me. AI can replace me if I don't know how to use it with a person who can. So we need to stay current with our knowledge. We need to understand how to be aware of new emerging threats. As I mentioned, the multi-billion-dollar industry is becoming a trillion-dollar industry, so criminals on the rise. And if we don't share knowledge, we are doomed. If something happens to me, I should share that knowledge and intelligence to other people so that they could detect that problem. And that's why we need security. Security shouldn't be thought as an afterthought or an add-on to something. It should be integral part of our software development lifecycle. And in essence, what do we want to do? We want to build and deliver secure software, right? We want security to be there from the start as a foundational element. That's not easy to do. It's easy to say, not easy to do. As we saw with the event stream example, we need to make sure our dependency chain is secured. And not least, we need to also make sure that the environment that developers develop is also secure, because that's also a way into our production environment and for hackers to abuse us. So, traditional controls, security controls, look at software usually at a point of time. That's not enough. That's a good start, but we need to understand how we can reach to continuous assessment. Because if we do traditional controls, it just looks software at a point of time, but there are so many places where we can introduce new vulnerabilities into the software. So, this is where security by design for us comes in. This is a term that we came up with. We started using in Pipedrive when we thought, okay, we have the basic controls in place. We need to move closer to development. We want to make sure that security is a part of the software, not being done afterwards. So in terms, we wanted to shift security left. As you can see, we have the development lifecycle here. We wanted to make sure that we cover each element of it. Easy to say, not easy to do. It will not happen overnight. I've been at Pipedrive 7 years. We're still doing it. And are we still making mistakes? Yes. But the idea of security by design is to eliminate mistakes before they reach live production code. It's much less expensive to fix those during the development process rather than at the end or suffer a data breach. So, that being said, I want to now go on a journey. And this is my journey at Pipedrive. And this is what we have done. And this is not something that you should write down, okay, I'm going to go now and do the same thing. This is just something that we did. Pipedrive started out with penetration testing. Penetration testing is a traditional control used to test your software against security vulnerabilities. Usually it's manual testing done by humans. You contract an external entity to do it for you. You can also do network testing, server, whatever you want, right? But you can test your services against that. Pipedrive is a web application software, so our testing was there. This testing was done before I joined Pipedrive. So it's great, because doing security doesn't mean that you have to have a security team. Security can be done without that. If you start a startup tomorrow, should you hire 5 people into a security team? No. You should hire developers that can do security, that can think about these things. You don't need a team at start. So, penetration testing. We use it to this day because it's important. But what is it? It's a control that looks at software at a point of time. Let's say, I'll bring you an example. We do the test on 1st of January. You're an agile software development company. What happens the rest of the 12 months? You're introducing new vulnerabilities, potentially, into the code without somebody testing or looking at it. So are you comfortable for that next 12 months to leave your software open like that? Not to mention, if you do another test next January, your developers will have a huge backlog to go through because a lot of vulnerabilities were discovered. Good start, but we need more. So what was the next step for us? Was a web application scanner, because we offer a web app. Instead of doing testing once a year, additionally, we had something that did testing for us once a week. Is it the same as penetration testing? Absolutely not. You cannot beat manual testing, but we were able to find low-level bugs that was easy to recreate and remove. So we had some additional checks in place, but we're only getting started. The next big part for us in this is bug bounty program that allows hackers to purposely penetrate your application and upon successful penetration or finding a vulnerability, you will pay money to them. This is one of the best investments that the Pipedrive security team has done to this day. It can cost you, but it can also find very interesting things for you. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with it. I absolutely love it. I love that we have it. I hate that I have to pay that money out. And in very many cases where we could have seen it ourselves, right? So that's still a problem for us. We should have some additional controls. So a few words about that program. We had maybe 5 to 10 active hackers. They were bringing us quality reports. We absolutely liked working with them. To this day, some of them are our beta testers. But our ambition was to have a public program, which means anybody can join up your program and report vulnerabilities to you. We had one step in between that where we introduced 100 new hackers to the platform. We invited to the private program 100 new hackers. Not that 100 new hackers now started reporting bugs to us, it was few of them. But that evening when I invited the hackers and I came back next day, I had 40 tickets in my backlog. And I was the only person having to deal with it. And out of that 40 tickets, 39 of them were complete rubbish. And I accepted one of them. So what happened? I introduced quantity over quality. Instead of having a good relationship with select hackers, I just started to inbound a lot of hackers to bring me all kinds of reports. Wasn't very effective for us. At that moment, we decided we are not going to go public. So to this day, we have a private program. We only invite quality hackers to the platform that we know are good, and hackers outside of the platform that we want to hack us, we invite them. But we are a private program. That alleviated stress for us. Do we still receive rubbish reports? Yes, but it would have been a lot worse if we hadn't done that. Now, that brought the kind of continuous manual testing for us. We're very happy, but still, consider, we are testing code that is already live. We are not eliminating the problems before. That also increased the cost for us because we had to pay out the bounties when they successfully found something. Around the same time, we introduced server vulnerability management program. Why? If our app is secure, great, but we also have to consider the platform that the app is running on. And this is where I made a big mistake. And we had the tool in place. Nobody was looking at it or didn't have the proper time and energy to contribute and look at it. So what did that mean? That meant that the vulnerabilities weren't taken care of. So when we started investing time into it, we did it kind of wrong. We looked at the vulnerabilities and immediately started assigning them to our infrastructure team. The vulnerabilities didn't get fixed because we didn't have an agreement with them. We didn't have processes in place, SLAs. We didn't have communication. Communication is the most important part, as I mentioned, between other organizations, inside our organization, with engineers, with developers, with everyone. I cannot do my job just by sitting in a terminal and creating tickets. We created the processes, we created SLAs, and everything started working. We eliminated a lot of false positives right away, and our vulnerability amounts started to drop. It worked. Now, the next step is where we thought about security by design. We wanted to shift more closer. We had accomplished quite a bit already by detecting vulnerabilities at points of time. Let's move closer now. OWASP is a non-profit organization that offers training, different kinds of tooling for web app security. You can have web app testing tooling from them. It's a good place to start. But what they also have is a secure coding checklist, a massively long checklist with hundreds of questions to say, hey, have you done input validation correctly? Have you thought about database security? So it seemed like something that, hey, we can use to get developers thinking. Before we release the code, we give that checklist to them, we fill it up and understand if, are we doing these things or should we put some safeguards in place? Great idea, but the first few meetings were very painful. It lasted hours. It was us and the dev teams. They didn't want to see us again. because we literally took hours out from their day trying to go through that checklist. I was lucky that nobody fell asleep. But that being said, we saw some effects. We found out things that, hey, yeah, we haven't considered that. Let's look at this. It was painful, but we saw some results. So instead of paying a hacker for finding a vulnerability, we're eliminating the problem before that. However, that wasn't scalable. So we had to fine-tune it, make it more Pipedrive kind of, more for Pipedrive in that sense, because we couldn't just copy-paste that list. So to this date, we're still using it, and I will show you how we're using it. It's a bit, I would say, more relaxed now, more developer-friendly, but it's still something that we have room to improve on quite a bit. On this slide, we also introduced the container vulnerability management, because people were moving more towards microservices. So were we. We were adding another layer. So we had servers, and we had servers that ran microservices on top of them, and those powered the web app. So we had to make sure that each of these layers is covered, and we secure that. So now we reach to maybe a more interesting place and difficult place for me. The dependency check that I was talking about before. We had to do it twice to get it right. We implemented a tool, and the results it provided was like a rainbow. It was, it had so many, this dependency has 5 dependencies inside, and the 6th one is the problem. And then you're trying to figure out, okay, how I'm going to take this reasonably, go to the developer and say, you're using this dependency, this problem is over here. How can we fix this? How can we kind of realistically talk about this? The amount that these tools initially will give you can be quite huge. Don't be scared about that. A lot of it's false positive. They don't take your business into account. They're just technical scanners that may not understand your business logic and your also app logic. So it's not always true positive. You have to take that with a grain of salt. Again, we didn't learn from the vulnerability management before. You should think things through before going to developers and start just assigning things to them. So our problem was the tool that we got didn't really solve much. We had the information, but it was raw. We now knew kind of where the vulnerabilities were, but we had to refine and go through them, which is where I'm very lucky that I have a few developers in my team who can speak that language more than me, who understand that, okay, this is how we should do it, this is how we should assign it. And also, we should build a middle layer to create this ticket creation to the developers much easier. We did that. We took our ideas to different levels of engineering managers, directors, engineering leadership to talk, hey, we want to do this. At start, it will be painful because we have to start assigning quite a big amount of tickets to each team. And we need your help to make this process better and root out the false positives. It works. It was bumpy on the way, but it works. With that, we also implemented secret scanning. Because can you ask yourself today, if a secret would leak from your code, can you replace it without taking your app down? Can you survive that leakage? Can you rotate it like this? So, hard coding secrets into code, another bad thing. This is what we try to find out with this tool. But the other question also is, if you use this secret to encrypt your data, and you need to now rotate it, is that data still accessible for you later? So these are some of the questions that we ask ourselves to make sure that we have a robust defense where, if needed, we can switch things over without causing downtime for the application. So yeah, along that, with the dependency checking, we also introduced static code checks for our code. Luckily, it wasn't like dependency checking where you saw a lot of data that you had to refine through. It was still data to go through and make readable for developers, but it wasn't that much. These were fairly simple and straightforward. And at this point, we truly looked at shifting left. Because still, all the controls we are doing, we are looking at things in a point of time. When they're released, yes, we now have checks in different places in the development lifecycle maybe, and we have more, so we're doing it more continuous approach, but we're still looking at the very right end of that chain. So we want to start shifting left, and this is where we start to do things. We start to introduce dependency check and static code check into our CI/CD pipeline, meaning if a critical vulnerability would be introduced with the new pull request, it would block that merge, and you would have to fix it before it reaches live. With one important thing to note here, we are doing it for critical vulnerabilities. If you would be doing it for low, medium, high, I think I would be chased out of the building. And critical is something that you should start off with. So that's how we moved more to the left. And with what we are still on that journey, image governance, package governance is something that we are looking and investing time into how to do that. Image governance is easier. What do I mean by image governance? I mean by the images that you are allowed to use for your microservices. That is not the wild, wild west that you just go pull out whatever you want, because that's where also malicious images can come from. It's just you think you're using an Nginx base image, but actually you're using Nginx written in a different way, and it has a malicious package there with it. So image governance is one thing. NPM package governance is much harder. And I'm not sure we are still figuring out controls, how we can make it easier. But this doesn't also make sense that every package comes through us. That's not scalable. We don't know. It doesn't make sense. We need to figure out how we can introduce less packages and govern over them, understand what we have in our environment. And finally, on this journey, we are doing, and we're already POCing, so doing a proof of concept on threat modeling. What does that mean? During the design phase of a new feature for Pipedrive, we try to look at and understand what threats may be introduced with this new feature. So we want to understand before we even move on from the design phase. And how does all this look like today? This is what we are striving for. This is not something that you have to strive for one by one. This is what we want to do and aim to do. At the very start, during the requirements phase, we conduct a risk assessment. Risk assessment looks at privacy risk, looks at security risk, quality risk, and we can then understand how much security or what should we then kind of not impose, but what controls should we look at. So the yellow controls that you see are conditional. This means that they activate on certain times and certain conditions when certain conditions are met. Every new bigger feature has a privacy questionnaire that they have to fill. It's not long. I think it's quite relatively easy, but we care about privacy quite a lot, and we have that as well in part of the kind of life cycle. Then, let's say the new feature that I introduced is a critical function. It starts to ingest customer data. We have to figure out a lot of things. Okay, it's a critical function. We will then do threat modeling. We will try to understand how you are thinking about designing that system, how we can break this system. Where can we find the threats in that design phase? And the security checklist is still here. In a different format, a bit better, and we will fill this according to what functions this new feature does. Instead of looking at the whole hundreds of questions, we look at maybe 20, 30 questions where you're doing input, okay, we are looking at that category. You are making connections with database, okay, we have to look at that category. So we can play around with that, make it a bit easier. And instead of us sitting down with the developers, they fill it up, and we meet at the end. So moving forward from there, we have the more continuous SAST analysis and security monitoring. So SAST, the static code checks, we already talked about. We are now looking at when people release code, we take a look at it, and we block it if necessary. So we have this continuous assessment throughout this cycle. What we also do, I did not talk about much or at all pretty much about this, but the third point of making sure that our development environment is secure and our workstations, our servers are secure. We have continuous security monitoring. So we have a security operations center that makes sure that we ingest all the logs necessary. We look at network traffic. We look at what's going on the workstations. We look at what's going on the servers, what anomalies are popped up. We have continuous monitoring in that lifecycle. And our dynamic check is still in place as well. And the yellow HackerOne, which is our bug bounty program, if you are a bright hacker, find me afterwards and let's sign you up. We introduced this already in the phase where we can hand something over to hackers. Does that mean that all the hackers that we have in part of our platform get access to the early code and look at it? No. We have 2 hackers that are kind of part of our security team already. We know a lot about them. They are easy to access, and we say to them, hey, we have this new feature. We have enabled this for your company. Please test it for us and find the problems before we do a general release. So we have people that beta test our feature. And security guild is something Pipedrive has guild system. We have architecture guild, other guilds, but it's a group of people that care about security. So security enthusiasts throughout the organization. Our team leads it, but there are people from all parts of engineering that are part of that. Every other week we have a session where we talk about something security related, problems that we have, or just some interesting topic. But what we also introduced is our own little penetration testing. So what we do is, if we have a very critical new function that is being introduced to Pipedrive, and the developers want and we see fit, we conduct a penetration test internally with the security guild people, because developers are the best people to test that. We don't use the same developers that develop the code, other developers, but we use to look and we see and we find, every time we do it, we find some things. So we're finding things before we hand it to the hackers or do general release, so eliminating problems from there. And finally, what always happens is we have a security checklist review. This is still quite cumbersome because we need dedicated people to do that. And this is something that we should look how to automate. And this is on the roadmap for next year for us. So, few key takeaways that I hope came out throughout this slides as well. Continuous approach is the way to go. We are agile. Everybody is developing like an agile company these days. If you only do testing or look at software at X time or consider security as an add-on, you're an easy target. Make yourself a hard target. Again, will you get breached? Quite possibly, but make it as hard as possible. There are times when we cannot eliminate the risk totally, but we can make it so hard that the hackers move on to something else, to another platform, because it's not monetarily worth it for them. They are after money, and that's all. And defining the security needs across your software development lifecycle. These were our needs. These won't be the same for you. Every organization is different. Every person is different. You will do it different. That's fine. It's just an example of what we have done. And one very important factor that I have learned throughout these 10 plus years, but more on these last 7 years, select tools that are based on your needs, not on the needs what somebody tells you. Do not go to a vendor and let them tell you what you should do. Go to the vendor and say, I need these 5 functions. If you don't deliver, I'm moving on to the next vendor. There's plenty of vendors out there. Don't let them tell you what you need. You should know what you need. And start small. 7 years, there's still plenty to do. If I would want to do everything all at once, I would make a big mess. Start from having traditional controls and checks in place and move on to this more continuous approach. It's fine. Yes, in somewhat you're a race against time, but we always are. And we have to take and pick the low-hanging fruit that we can tackle first and easy. And keep it simple, stupid. If you create a complicated system, nobody wants to use it. You won't want to use it. Keep it as plain and as stupid as you need. If you need an X set of features, and you're developing a tool for it, do that. Not throw in Y and Z as well. Just keep it simple when you get started. And one very important factor for us is we don't want to be seen as blockers, which quite often we are, because there's those security guys again. They're going to come and block us from being agile, block us from delivering function faster. We want to be enablers and the drivers of innovation. We want to do security while we can enable the business and also enable the business to have competitive advantage. Security is not only for your own security, you can use that as a feature to offer to your customers to gain advantage. So we want to make sure that the tools or processes that we set in place is in balance with everything. Is in balance with the developer experience. Have we caused negative experience? Absolutely. How do we get past it? We communicate, we talk. We cannot be in a silo somewhere in a corner. We won't be doing effective security. And assume that people will make mistakes. Absolutely natural to make mistakes. I have made plenty of mistakes. I made mistakes creating these slides. What is important is you learn from it. For us, if we have an incident, if we have a major finding, we always have an after-action report. That's the point where all the gathered parties get together and we learn what we have done wrong, so that don't introduce it again. An example from early days of the bug bounty program, for example, we fixed the bug, cross-site scripting. 2 weeks later, the same hacker gives me the same report. I'm like, why are you sending me this? You just reported this to me. I go and test it, it works. We reintroduce the mistake, right? Learn from what you have done. Don't reintroduce the same things. And the same goes for us. I made a mistake by only testing cross-site scripting in Chrome browser. I didn't test it in, Safari and Firefox, for example. The hacker was clever. We fixed it, but we didn't recheck after every fix. We make sure that the vulnerability is fixed. But we didn't check in Firefox. It was still working. So we make mistakes, but we have to learn from them. And communication and understanding is key. If we don't communicate with each other, if we don't spark discussion, how controversial it may be, how cumbersome at the start it may seem to you, if you don't like it, say it. Feedback is important to me. How have we gotten to this level with our this security checklist? We've had multiple sessions where developers tell us, these don't make sense. Can we do it that way? Is there any other ways of improvement? Together we can make things better, whether it's inside the organization or outside. And communication and understanding each other is a key. And finally, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. So experience and try things. It's in human nature. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can write to me, and I'll be here near the blue stage as well, where we can discuss and you can say, what did I say wrong? I'm happy to learn. Learning is what drives me every day at work. If I don't learn or grow, I move on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristian. I think it was a really great hands-on case study, how you approach cybersecurity in Pipedrive, how you understand it. And I think it was really great, this takeaway that you can always start small. If you're a small company, you can have a team of developers who just take care of security, think about these issues. You don't need immediately a team of 5 security experts. You can do it as you grow.
Exactly. So you will see when you have the need for it. It's that point when you won't get your regular work done, right? You are only focused maybe on security, and that's where maybe hiring one person is the point.
So thank you once more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristian.